in my journey. And this is our beloved, the one and only Mr. Nick Matthews. He has made himself available for the next 30 to 45 minutes. So we can really help you guys understand how the power of your mind works and how to really create change in your life without being bombarded by how to do it. We're going to go into the science behind change. We're going to go into brain hacks. And most importantly, we're going to go into how to understand yourself so then you can lead your life from a charged and ignited part of you instead of the dimmed and lost part of you. So without further ado, guys, let's welcome Nick. Let's type in the comments. Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you doing, Nick?
Hi, Zane. Thank you so much for hosting this.
Absolutely.
I did my first live last week. There were so many things to do at the same time. I just like to do what I like to do without the mechanics. So you are my guru.
And you know what, guys, it is awesome because I love to probe into Nick's brain because his talent and his vast years of excellence and experience in the area of the mind and subconscious reprogramming. And I'm not gonna spoil any amazing news. I'll let him share with us some of that. So when Nick actually mentioned like, hey, Zane, the technology can be a little bit daunting, I want to focus on teaching, I was like, so you're telling me I can just sit and ask you questions that I want answers for anyway, right? Is that what you're saying? I was like, pretty much. I was like, yes, let's do this. So guys, please type in the comments. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We want to welcome Nick into this, and we're going to do more of these lives together on my page and on Nick's page, because we really want you guys to get this knowledge. It is knowledge that has changed my life, changed Nick's life, changed the lives of thousands and thousands and thousands of people that Nick worked with both personally and in group format. And we want to make this information available for all of you guys. So without further ado, let's dive into this interview with Nick. So Nick, please let us know a little bit more about you. We want the community, we want your page, we want my pages, we want the world to know who Nick is and what he stands for, so we can align ourselves with your mission, with your vision, and join you in changing our lives.
Thanks, Zane. Hey, that's great. You know, I'm getting on a bit. In fact, it's my birthday tomorrow, so a bit of a celebration month for me. So thank you. Thanks for the kind comments that I've been getting as well. You know, for a very long time, I left school at a very early age, at 17, and joined the Air Force. And I loved it. I spent 23 years in the Air Force, initially primarily as an engineer, and then I served in the Middle East, in former Yugoslavia, and in other operational areas. Unfortunately, I got injured in some of these some of these things, which means I'm a war pensioner, even though I don't have a red coat and walk around in Chelsea. What I did get involved in in the latter years of military was working out why people did what they did, both within the military and those external. And I worked with this American lady, a professor, who was working out in the Middle East at the time, and she was teaching. Well, she wasn't teaching. I was learning from her how she talked to people and how she did interviews, and it was just amazing what this lady did, and that got me the bug on psychology. And over the next 10 years, I did masters in behavioral change, and I did clinical psychology. Then I got very much involved in neural research, and that's the focus of my work over the last 20 years.
Wow. Guys, I get to share with you a little bit of an experience that I had personally with Nick, and this is actually what he does in his own practice. So for those of you who might want to work with Nick directly, we'll put some information in here so you can get in touch with him. But one area that Nick really helped me break through in is I came from the Middle East. I had major PTSD episodes and flashbacks of painful events. And Nick did a session with me where we actually went into that past of mine and we shifted the triggers. And we did it even a part where, Nick, if you remember, where you helped me connect with my father and talk together about how we want to create a new future that doesn't come from fear, doesn't come from suffering. And so, Nick, I would love for you to share with the community, like how you really help people, not just me, but people in really high positions, including the Royal Air Force, how to understand their minds so they are not triggered.
Okay, I'm extremely fortunate to have worked with professional sports people, golfers, footballers, cricketers, tennis players, and classical musicians who were looking. There were things that were holding them back in their life from being the best that they could. And in addition, I work with what I would call, I work with execs, I work with people just in off the street who feel as though they're missing out on some particular potential of theirs. And what I've learned throughout my particular research is, from birth, we've got billions and billions of neural links that are impacted on by the way we've been brought up, our value belief system, how we've reacted to our friends, our families. And what this has done is it's effectively conditioned us to behave in a particular way, but not just behave, but to think in a particular way. And this way of thinking controls our lives, because what happens is, over time, over our life, we continually reinforce our ways of thinking, and it's very, very difficult to break out. And what happens is, sometimes in our particular life, we get stuck on a particular issue or a particular emotion that we have to break through and move on with our lives. Now, with Zane in particular, it was to do with his dad, with his father, and there was a lot of emotion attached to that. What I did with Zane is I explored his way of thinking, which is made up of neural links. You've got billions and billions of neural links, and these are electrical pathways for messages. And these messages are attached to emotions. These emotions are attached to chemicals. And these chemicals are firing off every second of every day, millions and millions of times a day. And they reinforce what we do, what we have become, and therefore what we can achieve. And this was an issue with Zane, as it is with many, many other people, is you're conditioned. We've got to break that self-conditioning. Now, it's not just the conditioning of the way you've been brought up. Over the past million years, humans have developed a way of behaving. We've got our inbuilt prehistoric safety systems run by, the fight or flight system run by the amygdala. I won't go into too much detail on that now, but we will go into it later on in this particular series. But by breaking the condition, we can change who we are and what we want to be. You see, the great Stephen Covey, I've hoped, the great guy the doctor from Salt Lake City, and he wrote extensively about change has to occur from inside out. Most of the coaching that we get today is from the outside in. And whilst affirmations, while meditations, these things work, however, we have to change our conditioning from the inside to go out to make it beneficial for these things to happen.
Absolutely, Nick. One area where I saw a major breakthrough in my own life, and that translated into other areas of my life, is when I let go of the conditioning, or the best way to describe it, the way I have thought for so many years. When I broke from that paradigm and I shifted to the new paradigm, different things started to occur in my life. So then change started to become more of a part of my life instead of something that is forced upon me. And that was one of the areas that I cherish to this day, because I apply what you taught me, Nick, in my life all the time. I actually became so passionate about what Nick taught me that I studied mindfulness, studied subconscious reprogramming. I'm getting my certification in hypnosis because I really felt the power of what Nick has taught for 20 plus years, and now he's making available for all of us here. So Nick, there's one area I would love for you to share with the community, and it is how it's the neurological part of change, like how change is influenced, and how when we approach change from a scientific part, from the neurology of change, we actually could change things way, way, way easier than forcing change upon us.
Oh, Shane, yeah. I mentioned that we've got billions and billions of neural links within our brains, and this is how we send messages. These messages spark off particular chemicals. These chemicals can be good chemicals, it can be bad chemicals, and depending on how you use these information pathways, these neural links, you can grow them, because the more you use it, the bigger it gets, the more positive it gets. It's like a basketball player shooting hoops. You know, after they've been doing it so long, these neural links are so big that the guys can't miss these particular hoops. It's like with soccer players taking a penalty or a one-on-one with the goalkeeper. They just can't miss because their neural links program the body, the muscle structure, the physiology, the psychology, to make sure that we work in a particular way. Excuse me, guys. Now, we can, and I mentioned before about conditioning, we can decide what our conditioning is to be. We've got to be crystal clear on this. We've got to put a stake in the ground, understand where we are in life across a spectrum of different things. It could be money, it could be relationships, it could be health, it could be potential. And what we have to do is decide where we are, where we want to go. And then we start that conditioning to change these neural links. It's a set process. Follow the process. The process works. There's a lot of things involved in that, but it works, and it works from the inside out. It works from the self. It's not going after a quick fix. Although many of the exercises that I use have tremendous results in a very, very short period of time.
Yeah, guys, the inside out approach. Actually, Nick, Michaela is giving you a huge shout out. She's like, love the inside out approach. And I cannot emphasize enough, guys, how important it is to approach change from the inside out, because the way to change things in our physical reality is to change the neural thinking that we have conditioned ourselves to believe in since we were little kids all the way to adulthood. So we reinforce these neural links every single day of our lives. And when we change those neural links, little by little, we will shift the energy of where we're going in our lives. And those little shifts is what create the overall change. When Nick did this session with me, oh my gosh, it's been like 6 or 7 years. Can you believe that, Nick? The shift was small, but when I look at my life now, from the time that me and Nick connected, it's like day and light. I broke through in so many areas of my life, personal and professional. So my invitation for you guys is to use this time with Nick that we have here and all of the future trainings that we'll do with Nick as a sacred time to learn the science behind your brain, so you can make the changes that you need to make now. So then the future becomes a better version of what you are living right here, right now. And speaking about that, Nick, in one of your previous training, you shared with us how when we change our thinking on a neural level, how it changes the chemical mechanism of our brain and how that influences our body to live the lives that we want right here, right now from the brain. Could you speak about that, like from the chemical part of things, how when we change, it changes the chemistry in the brain, and that could actually help manifest things into life.
Yeah, certainly, Zane. It's interesting. And before I answer that, let me just go back to the other point you were making about this. It starts off with a small change and then gets bigger. It's the reciprocal of, a 1 degree change from a movement in front of you. If you're moving a mile, 1 degree doesn't make that much difference. But if you're moving across the pond to the US from the UK, 1 degree out, you could end up in South America, or you could end up in Canada. So it's so important that we start to make those changes, we reinforce them, but at the same time, we also have an idea and direction on where we want to go. So the second part to the question, Zane, was around chemical composition. Now, our brains are electrical chemical devices. Fantastic engineering. That's took millions of years to evolve. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with a manual, which is why I do what I do, why Zane does what he does. Now, when we going from a positive perspective, we know where we want to go, and we're striving to do this inside out change, this reconditioning that we have to do. We are conditioned to do things in a particular way. So we will act, we will walk, we will talk, and our physiology will display who we are, what we are, and people pick that up. If you want to change that, we've got to change our neurology. Now, one of the ways we change our neurology is by understanding where it is we want to go. Now, our brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality, and that's great, because we can utilize that. And if we start off, there's 3 very, very positive chemicals that we want to produce more of in the brain, and these 3 chemicals are serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. Now, these 3 chemicals, they give us motivation, they give us a positive response to life, and they kick in our pleasure circuits, our reward circuits. So the more we get it, the more that we want it. So everything's going great, and we've got the right physiology, we're feeling good. Hey, I feel good. And all of a sudden, some emotional kick in, something from the past, one of these conditions that we've set since childhood. And what happens is the fight or flight response comes in. And it could be real or it could be not real. It doesn't make any difference. The brain doesn't know the difference. And what happens is this part of the brain called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is 2 little almond-shaped pieces of brain, which are just at the back of the head. They're about 2 inches apart. And what happens is this fight or flight response by the amygdala kicks in automatically. You get a chance to think. It's automatic. Your logic goes out the window. And what happens is, because of this conditioned emotion that you have got from childhood, it kicks out adrenaline and cortisone. These are negative chemicals in the wrong circumstances. Obviously, if it is a real fight or flight, you want these chemicals to kick in. But what happens is, during the day, these things keep kicking in. They destroy these positive chemicals. It evaporates the oxytocin, the serotonin, the dopamine. It starts to make us feel miserable. So we either do one or several things. We become miserable with ourselves. The inside out is forgotten. We become someone with poor values. We try to go for quick wins. It doesn't work. And before we know it, we're feeling a bit fed up with ourselves.
Yeah. So, Nick, when the amygdala hijacks our life, so we have all these beautiful happiness chemicals and we're feeling good, and then something happens and our amygdala literally hijacks how we feel, and all of a sudden we're feeling terrible, even though we're just fixing a cup of coffee, because we triggered some old neural links that are related to some negative events. So how could we get our emotions back in check? And I love this term that you called, how you can do an amygdala hijack. So then you are in charge, and instead of just the amygdala charging and firing the fight or flight part. So if you could help people understand how they can get back to the level of the happiness chemicals, and instead of just the amygdala taking over our life, that would be really helpful for people.
Okay, great question, Zane. You see, I've discussed conditioning and how we have become conditioned ourselves to act in a particular way, and therefore we're achieving the things that we were conditioned to achieve. It's the same with the amygdala hijack. It's our prehistoric system is designed to hijack, to condition the way we respond to a situation. Now, 5%, 10% of these things, might be required to help you survive in a particular situation. But for most of the things that happen to you, it's not. And one of the things that we do is we use this conditioning against itself. It's like these ancient martial arts, these ancient, from Japan, from China, the Eastern way of being for thousands and thousands of years. If they're fighting a big bloke, you use the weight of the opponent against them. You just become more flexible and think better. So what we do is we introduce anchors and triggers into your system because we recognize when these emotions are going to kick in. Now, this is part of the breakthrough work that I do. This is part of the Ignite Your Life course that I do with Zane and Jeff in the States. And it's all about installing conditioning triggers and anchors so that when something happens and we feel, we start to, when an amygdala hijack occurred, we start to feel a little bit clammy skin. We start to feel rushing. We start to go a little bit cold, ready for that fight or flight. When we recognize that, we can fire a trigger that we've already anchored to take us back to a more conditioned way of acting and behaving. And the more we do that, the more automatic that comes. And then it's all connected to where you are, where you want to go. And it's all wrapped up in this inside out approach. Nothing is free in this world. If you want to break years of conditioning, you're going to have to work at it. However, there is a process that works, and it works every single time.
And guys, I love what Nick shared with us, which is in order to change things that have plagued us for a lifetime, we get to invest in ourselves, and we get to invest in a process that works. I am so honored that I get to teach with Nick inside a program that we call the Ignite Your Life program. We actually put some information in the comments and in the description. So if you guys would like to work more with Nick and me on a personal level where we get to meet with you. So instead of just you watching me and Nick, you're actually with us in a virtual room and we're talking about things. We have actually a lot of people watching us here who are part of the Igniter community, where we actually help you implement the process of change. Right now, we are bringing awareness and we're doing a lot of public service, especially during the pandemic that everyone in the world is facing. That's why me and Nick felt so inspired to share with you guys these neural hacks, these things. And we know that the topic of the brain, it's a huge topic. It's not going to be covered in a 130-minute session. So guys, we encourage you. Let me actually display this section so you guys can help us. I encourage you guys to give us some questions that you might want to get some answers for. So then in the future, when me and Nick hold more sessions like this one, we can answer your questions. So please type the questions in the comment section here. Let us know like anything that we shared with you today that you need some clarity on, or any questions that you just have in mind about the topic of change, the topic of the brain, the topic of emotions, the topic of healing the past. Ask us these questions so we can answer them in future sessions. And Nick, before we conclude today's session, let's leave the crowd with some ways that they could actually apply some of these neural hacks that you shared. So what are some neural hacks you can share with the people that are watching us today that they can apply in their life today to start feeling the happy feelings and the happy chemicals release in their body? And that'll be a really good way to conclude the session on a high note. And then, guys, next week, me and Nick will be back with more questions, hopefully some questions that are coming from you, the community. So, Nick, if you could give us some tips or tricks or exercises that we can do to help us navigate life and feel more good about ourselves and about what's happening.
Okay, couple of easy ones. Thanks, Zane.
Absolutely.
A couple of easy ones, and it's based on the mind-body connection. Okay, one, and what we're doing is we're using our system, our conditioning against itself again. So there's one that we go, you can take a pencil and put the pencil in your teeth, but move your lips away from the pencil. Now, what the brain thinks you're doing is it thinks you're smiling, and it rewards that smile by producing more of the chemicals that we want, the dopamine, the serotonin, the oxytocin, and it can happen. And the more you do it, the more the brain gets used to it, the more chemicals it can release. Another one is by taking a point in the room that you're in or where you are at the moment, and just keep your head straight, but move your eyes up and look at a point on the wall in front of you. And whilst you're focused on that particular point in front of you, open up your peripheral vision. Take it as wide as you can and see things that you'd been filtering out. And you can do the same for the sound and smell as well. Because what happens is you've got these psychological filters that are holding your conditioning in place. And what happens is you go through life because you're conditioned to see the world in a particular way, perceive it in a particular way. And therefore you filter out, you delete, you distort, and you generalize things to support your conditioning. So what we want to do by using this little exercise, open up the peripheral, let more information in, and you will become rewarded with positive chemical reward. Another way, sometimes you be either sat by yourself or you're trying to get to sleep, and you'll be talking to yourself. We all do it.
We do.
What you can do is, what you might notice the next time that you're talking to yourself, even though there's no words coming out of your mouth, your tongue will be moving up and down because there's a reciprocal mind-body connection. Now, if you take the tip of your tongue and place it against the top of your mouth or against the back of the upper teeth and hold your tongue still, those voices will stop. Mm-hmm. And that will again release those particular chemicals that you want to help you move forward. Now, what I've got, and it's my birthday tomorrow, so there's a special offer coming out to you guys. And whilst I prefer paperback because I can mark it down and I can thumb through it, what I've done is my book, which there's about 50 hacks in there that you can use. For tomorrow only, from midnight for 24 hours, that specific time, you can get my Kindle version free, totally free. Read it and use it to change your conditioning. Honestly, I was given a skill, and I'd like to help, as Zane and Jeff want to help people get as much as they can from life. And if you want more, either I do breakthrough coaching, or there's the Ignite Your Life course. Come and just have a chat. I work with people 24/7. I'm doing a lot of first responder work at the moment, helping people with PTSD, anxiety, and stress, and it's all a function of our conditioning and how we are and how we react to situations.
Guys, as I mentioned, I had the honor to work with Nick in a one-on-one level where I actually was with him in the room. Remember, Nick, the chair, the recliner? Oh my gosh, I love that. So, guys, for those of you who might be interested in working with Nick on a one-on-one level, we put some links in the description. Find the path that is easiest for you. If you want to work with Nick directly, please reach out to him via the link, and you guys can have one-on-one sessions like what we're doing here, but with you directly. If you want more ongoing support, me and Nick actually, and a dear friend of ours named Jeffrey, we have the Igniter community. It's a community where we focus on mind, heart, body coherence. So we approach things from the mind, the body, the spirit. So you can create a cohesive programming that replaces the old conditioning that kept us stuck. And for those who might not be able to do either, I highly encourage you to get Nick's book, The Unstoppable 50 Ways to Brain Hack Your Brain, because in there are more exercises similar to what Nick taught us, which is like put the pen in your mouth and part the lips. So then you're forcing yourself to smile. And when you're forcing yourself to smile, it sends a signal to the brain that you're feeling good. So you start to release oxytocin. Like, how awesome is that? So whenever you're having a hard time or having a hard day, just sit somewhere, probably by yourself, so people don't think you're crazy. Or if you're like me, I don't care what people think. So I'm smiling, sitting in an airport smiling, or sitting in a garden smiling, and people are like, what this guy is on? I'm high on life. That's what is it. And oxytocin, it's chemical that is within the body. And when you learn how to release it on command, then your life truly changes in a very meaningful way. So guys, let's wish Nick the happiest of birthdays, because tomorrow is his birthday. And he's been so generous to have made his Unstoppable book available for all of us for the next 24 hours. So it starts tonight at midnight. And goes all the way for the next 24 hours. Go to the link in there. There's a link for US. There's a link for UK. Click on the link, whichever one works for you, and go grab your copy tomorrow. You will get the digital format of the book so you can study it and learn it. And guys, if you take advantage of this offer, I can guarantee you, your life will not be the same, because it changed my life. My life is not the same since the day I met Nick, because he helped me harness the power of my mind. So conditions and things that are happening around me do not control how I feel. So get the book, and when you get it, let's give Nick a lot of love by actually going to the book and leaving Nick a review, because more people will be inclined to invest in themselves and to learn from a mentor when they see other people taking action. So let's take this opportunity where Nick has given us this book for free to really understand the power of our brain, and go give a review so we can give permission to all of our friends and family members to go and take charge of their life, so they no longer live from the conditioning, but live from the power of their mind. So Nick, before we depart, any pearls of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom you want to share with the community before we conclude today's interview?
You know, in the early about 100 plus years ago, there was a Russian guy called Pavlov, and he was doing some experiments on a dog, and he was conditioning the dog to salivate by the sound of a bell. And that's where we get the whole idea of conditioned theory. Now, it wasn't until the great Stephen Covey wrote his books, you know, in the 70s, 80s, that we actually worked out how this conditioning therapy could be used in a more neutral, more positive way. And that's what we're trying to do. We're all conditioned. If you want, you have now got the opportunity to break that conditioning. You see, what you do now and what you've got now is a result of your conditioning to date. And if that's great for you, that's fantastic. But for many people, and for me for years, it just wasn't. And I struggled working out, how do I get what I want? I've got that now, and I want to pass that on to you people. So enjoy.
Wow, Nick, thank you. Thank you so much for making yourself available for us in the community. We love you guys so much. Please remember that in the description, we're going to put some links where you can find out more about how to work with Nick, how to join the Igniter community, how to get it, how to take advantage of the offer of the book. And guys, please remember, if you have any questions, you would like us to answer in a future interview, just drop the question in the comments, and then I, Zane, the technical guru, I'll go grab these links. So next week when we interview Nick again, we can ask him these questions. Because guys, this is your community. We are here to serve you. We are here to help you. And we're not here just speaking about what is happening in our lives. We're sharing actually what happened in our life, and we want to integrate that into yours. So ask us any questions you might have in mind, and we'll see you guys again next week. Till we speak again, may the rest of your life be the best of your life, and go out and be the unstoppable you. Cheers.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much, and thanks for the greetings. Love it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you so much.